Okay. And we are so grateful to have you with us today, Nathalie, all the way from Belgium. I mean, what a gift, what a treasure. And you are the first guest speaker we're having in our young, pure ministry. That's we call us pure. Yes. And I know a little bit of your story. I don't want to give it away, but I think that you're a fascinating woman. And I'm so grateful to have met you today. I hope one day we'll meet you in person. So. Without further ado, Nathalie, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. My name is Nathalie. I'm a sexaholic. I would like to start with two things. I would like to pray first, ask God to give me the words. Second thing is, thank you all for being here. I would like to pray first, but I do want to do that in my own language because it's so difficult for me to pray in English. Okay, good. I'm going to start the timer. I'm going to include this in the timing. Okay. Lieve God, lieve papa. Jij kent de mensen die hier zijn. Jij kent de mensen hun harten. Jij kent hun geschiedenis. Jij kent hun verleden. Jij kent hun toekomst. Je kent ook mijn geschiedenis. Jij weet ook waar dat ik moet zijn, waar dat ik vandaag ben en waar dat ik naartoe moet gaan. Ik heb geen flauw idee wat ik hier ga delen. Ik heb geen flauw idee wat ik hier ga delen. Maar jij weet dat wel. Laat me mijn verhaal vertellen op een manier dat mij helpt, dat anderen helpt. Laat mij in de oplossing eindigen. Laat mij uw liefde overbrengen. En geef mij de vrede die enkel gij kent en die enkel gij zijt. Amen. Okay, thank you so much. So my name is Nathalie. I am a grateful recovering sexaholic. My sobriety date is December 28, 2020. And that is not when I came into the rooms. I came into the rooms, believe it or not, 3 weeks after my sobriety date. And you don't hear that very often. And it does not mean that I'm not a sexaholic because I am a low bottom drunk. I really, really am. What happened was that at the end of December, I talked with my stepsister, who's also a sexaholic and not at all in recovery. And she said that she had 1 year without one night stands. And I was like, wow, 1 year without one night stands. Like, I want to do that too, because I had tried it all. I had, I will share about my story as well, but I had tried all of that. And, no one night stands, no texting with guys, all of that. And I couldn't do it. She said that she had 1 year without, never realized that that was possible because in my mind, I was always like, some people if you're an alcoholic, and I'm an alcoholic and I've been sober for 10 years now. If you're an alcoholic, that's pretty easy. Just don't take the alcohol in the house, and like the triggers are, and I can say that because I am an alcoholic. But if you're a food addict or if you're a sexaholic, that's completely different. In my mind, I was like, I have to have relationships with men, or I have to have sex, or I have to blah 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 blah. And she told me that she had 1 year without one night stands, and I was like, whoa, is that possible? I'm gonna do the same thing. It sounds amazing. And I started doing that after I talked with her. And after 3 weeks, I was not just tired of white knuckling, I was exhausted. I I didn't have the energy anymore to stay sober, but I also didn't have the energy to live anymore because white knuckling asks so much of me that I really, really that I couldn't, it asked all my energy and I could not live anymore. And I came to SA not to make my life better, but to save my life. And before I say, I had tried many different things and I want to share about that as well. So a little bit about my story first. My parents divorced when I was 10, and they never fought, never ever. For me as a child, it was like, perfect. Mommy, daddy, safe, everything is good. And then all of a sudden there was a divorce and my dad left. And my mom never, like he left, we went over there every 2 weeks, but he moved to the other side of the country. In Belgium, that's not very far. It was an hour and a half from our house. But if you're 10, it's like moving to China. There's no way you can get there by yourself. You just don't see your dad anymore. And I miss my dad because my dad wasn't like my favorite parent back then. I missed my dad. And my mom was, you know, she always tried her best. She was amazing. She did everything she could, but we didn't talk about emotions. Never was there a question like how is the divorce for you or anything like that. And my new stepfather, because my dad moved out and my stepfather came in immediately. And thank God he's still my stepfather today, 26 years later. But back then it was super weird that you have like a random guy just moving in the day after your dad moves out. And he never talked with us about emotions or anything like that. So when I was 13, 3 years after the divorce, surprise, surprise, I had my first boyfriend. And that first boyfriend I was 13, he was 17, almost 18. So he was like an adult. And it's not too difficult to see that I just needed a father. Um, so I had my first relationship was with him, and I was with him for 4 years, and then I fell madly in love with this other guy, and this other guy turned out to be a sexaholic, but I had no idea. So I fell in love with him, and I've been with him for 12 years until I was 30. And the first few years were okay, not okay, whatever. But after 6 years, he told me that. He wanted to have an open relationship, and it was not just like we're going to talk about this. It was we are going to have an open relationship, and I felt uh, I was scared. It was horrible. It was just horrible. If someone tells you that, you feel like you're not enough, you're not good enough, and everything. And so he would have sex with other girls, and uh, and I couldn't deal with it. I really couldn't deal with it. And so, in order to cope with the entire idea, okay. So first he said like, okay, you know what? You have the choice if you just allow me, or that you can be there as well, like you join us or you don't. And I was like, okay, if I join them, at least I have some control over the situation, then I know where he's at and what's happening. And so I joined him, and we went to these erotic massage parlors, and we went to the swing clubs together, and we went to prostitutes, and we did all these horrible things. And the first time I did it, I really felt like like the swing club, for example. Oh my God, I postponed that for almost a year. Like the idea was horrible. And after canceling it 2 times, the third time he said, I'm gonna drag you into it. Like even if I have to, we say in Dutch, like catch you like a lion in his cup, like on your neck, like if you have to take you there, like you will be in the swing club. And so I was in the swing club. And at first I thought like I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to do anything. Nobody's going to touch me. I'm not going to touch anybody. And I'm just going to look at what other people are doing. Uh, and it was there that lust totally grabbed me. Never ever in my life was I interested very much in sex. Like with him, it was just like, okay, we have sex and then it's over again for a few days or a week. Like I don't really like it. It was always like for me, like cleaning a toilet. You have to do it every few days or once a week, but it's not something you like to do. And that was what sex was for me. But in that swing club, that first time, lust, oh my God, it just entered me. It took me over, and I was hooked. And all these people there were touching me, and I was having like group sex, and I felt loved. I felt loved. And it was at the border with France. So most people there were speaking French. I don't speak one word of French. So there was no communication with them. They didn't know my name. I didn't know their names. It was just bodies touching. But for the first time in my life, I felt seen and I felt loved and I felt all this beautiful stuff. And so we went back to the swing club a lot, very, very often. And then year later or so, he said, we're going to have this open relationship. And I didn't want it. So he said, okay, we will break up. And the idea of breaking up was absolutely impossible for me because then I would be single. You know, how would I live my life as a single woman? I need him. I need him for emotional support. Like I needed a father when I was 13, when I was 10, you know, and I was then 26, 7 or so, but I was still like that little girl and I needed him to support me, not financially, you know, emotionally. And so okay, we wouldn't break up and he said like okay I will have you know I'll go on a date. And I remember he went away a weekend with his friends and he put a pack of condoms in his backpack and that just broke me, you know, the idea what he would do over there, and that I could not control it. So I felt like, okay, I'm not going to sit here the entire weekend and just cry like a baby. I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I arranged, like on the internet, like a one night stand for that Friday evening, that Saturday afternoon, and the Sunday morning, because Sunday afternoon he would be back home. And I'm not saying it was great, but for a long time, I felt no fear. There was no anxiety. There was no pain. There was no loneliness. There was nothing like that. I was just numb, totally numb. There was so much adrenaline. There was so much lust. I couldn't feel a thing. And I felt even better than in the swing clubs. I was like, this is better than alcohol. This is better than any drug that is probably available. Um, and I was hooked. And I did it again and again and again and again and again. And then it was 3 times per week, 4 times per week. And then a guy, um, the beautiful word is sexually abused me. I don't like to say that word because it's too beautiful for what really happened. I like to use the other word, but I know that is triggering for some people. He abused me in my sleep, and there was nothing I could do. I could just lie there, swallow away my tears, cry, cry and just be like, okay, get it over with, do your thing and let it be over with. And after that, I was too polite to leave because what would he think of me? So I stayed until the morning. I had breakfast with him and then I left and I was like, oh my God, never ever am I gonna do a one night stand again, never ever. And I went to like, you call it in the United States a CSAT, we call it sexuoloog. So I went to one, cost a lot of money, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop. So I stopped with the CSAT, sexolog, and I just went out there again. And having sex one night stands every day was not enough anymore after a while. It was as boring as going to the butcher or the grocery store. Super boring. So I found the BDSM scene, and all the sex became very extreme, very extreme. I had very extreme one night stands, and it's only by God's grace. And I didn't know God back then. I didn't know Him, but it's all I have goosebumps. Every time I tell this, I have goosebumps. It's only by God's grace that I'm still alive today because what these men did to me, that's enough trauma for 20 lives, Like, believe me, it's a miracle that I'm still alive today. I've had times when they did things to me that I really felt my only thought was, I'm never gonna see my mom again. But I survived every time. I survived. And I was done with it after, I did that for a while. I was done with it. I was suicidal. I was depressed, and I went to a psychiatric clinic because of that. I needed a break. I just needed a break. After 4 weeks, I went back home, and at that time, for the last 2 years, my ex had like a second relationship, and he celebrated Christmas with her parents and everything, and I was alone at home at Christmas Day, and um, something happened. It was the beginning of COVID, and he made the decision to go into lockdown in her apartment and not in our house that we had bought together because I am a handful and she's more relaxed. And then I broke completely, and I went again to a mental health institution for a second time, to the psychiatric clinic in lockdown. 6 weeks I was in that room. 6 weeks I didn't wear shoes, didn't go outside. Super weird. but it was the best thing that could happen to me then, because it was like a very safe haven, a very, very, very safe. And over there, in my first week there, in the second, hospitalization, I prayed. I had never prayed in my life, but I was so desperate that I prayed. It was a Catholic hospital, and there was this statue of Mother Mary. And I didn't know any prayers. I didn't know how to pray, but I knew the Serenity Prayer because I had been going to AA for several years, and I was a dry drunk over there. And there I always prayed Serenity Prayer without the God word. I always let the God part out, like, I don't care about this God, just grant me the serenity, whatever. And there I prayed at that statue. And the day after, I cannot explain why. Now I can explain why. It was God. I had the need and the courage to break up with my ex after 12 years over the webcam. Very weird, because we had a house together and all over the webcam, because a hospital in lockdown. And and that was the beginning. It was the beginning of, a new life. And it was not the beginning of my, it was not the end of my sexual acting out. For one more year, I acted out sexually, and I couldn't stop. And I tried therapy, and I even asked my psychiatrist for medication to lower my libido, so I wouldn't text with guys anymore, I wouldn't have sex anymore, and it just didn't help. I needed the attention. I was still texting and acting like I was, lustful, whatever. And I didn't feel a thing, physically, but I just needed their attention. Um, I went to SA, as I said, I went to SA after 3 weeks of total white knuckling. And they read the solution, and they read the problem and all of that. And I was just crying because I could relate. And I knew I have no other option but to do this. I just have to do this. I found a sponsor, which was not easy because there were no female members in Belgium, and there were two in the Netherlands, and they speak the same language as we, but they were not available for sponsorship. And I didn't speak English back then, and I said, like, there's no way I'm going to learn English. Like, everybody has to learn Dutch. No way I'm going to do this. And the guys in my group said, if you want to save your life, you have to learn English. So I did, and I started with a sponsor in Spain. She was Spanish, and anyway, she was not a perfect sponsor, blah, blah, blah. But I remember I called her 2 weeks in, withdrawing like crazy. My body, I was just freaking out. My mind was freaking out because I didn't have the drug anymore, Lust is a drug in my head. I went totally crazy. And I called my sponsor, and she asked me, did you pray already? I said, no, I don't have to pray. I don't believe in God. And she said, you might want to give it a try, because you cannot lose anything. It doesn't cost you any money, doesn't cost you much time, maybe a minute or so, and you don't know what will happen. So I prayed. And for the first time ever, I'm not saying it was like a thunderbolt experience, like not at all, but I had a sort of a gut feeling, because in that day I was going to do something that was really not healthy if you're in lust recovery. And my gut told me not to do it. And I called my sponsor afterwards and I shared this. And she said, that gut feeling, that is God. Listen to that. Always, whatever you do, whatever you do. And later on, I learned that that is the Holy Spirit, that is the Holy Spirit in me. And I listen to that, to Him, every day and every moment. Anyway, I started working the steps. And in step two says, I have it right here, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I worked step two, and all the steps with Step into Action, the book Step into Action, the essay book. And in that book, you have an inventory, and you can choose your own conception of God. How does God look like for me? What are His qualities? So I defined my own God. And for me, that God was everything that I always looked for, that I was always looking for in men, but couldn't find. So I could really define my own God. I was so happy with that. So I wrote down, He always listens to me. My ex, when I was talking in the car, he put on the volume of the radio very loud, and then he said, sorry, can't hear you. So that's what he did. My God was different. He listened to me. He never said that I was too much, never said that I was complaining too much, never said that I'm a drama queen. He just was there for me 24/7, always available. When I call him, he picks up the phone, he's there. I knew that. And I wrote all that stuff down. He listens to me. He never thinks I'm too much. He loves me. He takes care of me and all of that. And like a month or so later, thank you for the hearts. A month or so later, I really felt I have 1 more minute, so I'm going to try to do all of this in 1 more minute. But forgive me if I go a little bit over time. Okay, thank you. So a month or 2 months, yeah, something like that, after working step two, I really felt like, okay, this is beautiful, this step two. And this God, this higher power that I created, but it needs to have more, we say more body in Dutch. Like it has to become more real, it's too vague. Um, and I decided to just walk into a church, like a church with open doors, just walk into this church. And there was this priest, and he said, like, you want to go to, mass, because it was a Catholic church, you want to come to mass, like you're always welcome. And we're still talking about COVID, by the way. So that mass could be attended by two people. So you had to reserve because it was all online, it was like with a live thing, And so there was this one other guy. And by God's grace, that one other guy, it's my timer. That one other guy was not like 70 years old or super boring, but he was like my age. And I was like, oh, there are young people in church. Like, this is unbelievable. I didn't know that. So I went over there, talked with this one guy, talked with the priest, and I started to go back to church. I started to go back to church. I started reading the Bible, and by some great miracle, that higher power that I created in step two was the exact God as you know, God that I believe in today. Father, Son, and Spirit, and He's exactly the same. And it became all more real, and I met more people who believed in Him, and that was a lot for me. I worked my program, and I did step three. I give my will and my life over to Him. Blah 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 blah. But after a few years, I realized, not a few years, a year or so. I think I was 2 or 3 years in. I felt like I'm not giving my will and my life over to God. I'm giving my relationships to God. I'm giving my lust to God. I'm giving, of course, sex, because I'm single. Like there's no sex. Um, but I'm not giving my will and my life over to God. And something really shifted in me, because I was like, I'm struggling. God, please help me. Like I want this, so you make it happen because I want this. If you're really that good and really that great, you need to provide for me. So I was telling him what to do. And when I realized that step three says to give our will and our lives over to God, it says that He doesn't need to listen to me, but I need to listen to Him. I don't have to give my sex to Him, my relationships to Him, my lust to Him. I have to give my will and my life over to Him. So every moment of every day now, I ask, what do you want me to do? And I mean this literally. When I prepare food in the evening, I say, okay, I don't know how hungry I am. Do you want me to eat tofu, or do you want me to eat chicken? I ask everything. At the end of my dinner, I'm like full, and I feel like, oh, I want like, hot milk with cinnamon. That's like really good. God, is it a good idea to drink like hot milk? I'm already full. And then he's like, no, take a cup of tea. It's much lighter for you. I give my will and my life over to him. And I also want to share about step 11, about prayer and meditation, very shortly, very shortly. Um, I've prayed since the beginning of my program, since that one time that my sponsor told me that I had to pray. And that prayer was awful, by the way. It was just like, it was like this. I want to say that. Okay, if you really exist and if you're really out there, then help me. And then I didn't know how to end the prayer. I didn't know that people said amen. No, I didn't. Never went to church or anything like that. So I just waved. I said bye-bye, because I didn't know how to end the prayer. Today I know that saying bye-bye and waving is a perfect ending of a prayer. Like I can pray however I want. he likes it. You know, the more genuine I am, the better it is for him. But that was where I was back then. Today I pray a lot, like all day long, and I meditate a lot. And that is a new thing. That's a new thing because I meditated until a month ago. I meditated 25 minutes in the morning, 25 minutes in the evening, and it was hell. Hell. All the thoughts in my mind were like, oh my God, so loud and crazy. And after 25 minutes, I was just like, oh my God, it's over. You know, I did my thing, it's over. But I have discovered a few weeks ago that if I lay down on my bed instead of sitting up on the couch, that meditation is 1,000 times easier, so much easier. And now I meditate for 15 minutes, for 40 minutes, and I do it in the morning, I do it in the afternoon, I do it in the evening, and I meditate 2 hours per day, 3 hours per day now. And oh my God, the God is not just here anymore. He's here, you know? In my meditation, there's this sense of peace, of serenity, and it's from here, like from my head to my toes. It's he is here, he's everywhere, and he's so great and he's so good. And it makes it so much easier to make good decisions, to make right decisions, to follow him and not to follow me, to do step three, to give my will and my life over to him. And with that, I will pass. And I thank you all so, so much for inviting me, for letting me talk, and for listening to me. And I'm looking forward to your shares. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Nathalie. That was just amazing. And I see some of the other reactions already. I think everybody's feeling the things that you shared in our hearts, and we can relate on various levels. Even from the point of, I just am amazed. You didn't know English and you did not believe in God. And through going after your sobriety and your purity, you gained a faith and you learned English. That's amazing. And